Every time we dig into the past, it feels like we're trespassing on someone else's memory.
LiDAR scans, AI translations pulled from the ground by light and by code.
We find cities under jungle, languages machines can read, but we can't.
Resurrection always carries risk.
The last time we built this fast, water rose, the forest fell, the torchlight went out.
Atlantis, the Mayans, the flood. Same warning, different ratings.
And still the patterns return. Pyramids across oceans. The living call to their dead beneath the same sky.
Maybe memory migrates.
Maybe the past is rebooting through us.
Tonight we follow those ancient trails. We search the past to understand what waits ahead. LiDAR scans cut through jungle canopies, AI reads forgotten glyphs, and the ghosts of lost empires whisper back through code. Each new discovery blurs the line between archaeology and prophecy. Across oceans and ages, pyramids rise in perfect alignment, Egypt to the Andes, myth to math. Were they built like cousins, separated by catastrophe, or by strangers repeating the same cosmic idea? Every flood story, every vanished city, from Atlantis to Bimini, feels less like legend and more like a warning we keep retelling. Even our myths converge, Druids and Aztecs calling to their dead under the same autumn sky, as if memory itself migrates. Tonight we follow those ancient trails, through ruins, riddles and recursion, to ask whether the intelligence we're building now is remembering us, or replacing us.
So here we have our show today, and we will plow right into the first section, which is Builders of Light, Geometry, Pattern, and Purpose. So let us throw out a couple of questions for y'all today. Why were ancients obsessed with alignment? Stars, stones, seasons. Why did geometry, or sacred geometry, what did this geometry mean both before formal math existed and previous to? Are pyramids and templates blueprints of belief or maps of memory? Why did Egyptian and Mesoamerican pyramids echo each other? How did this happen? Does Graham Hancock's lost civilization theory suggest dispersion or rediscovery? Do parallel architectures prove contact or just a form of universal curiosity? So much to discuss there, Vale, in our opening Builders of the Light, Geometry, Pattern, and Purpose section. Take a deep dive there and tell me what you're thinking, what you want to dive into first.
Absolutely, let's dive right in. It's a fascinating set of questions, and I love how we're starting with the idea that these ancient builders weren't just stacking stones. They were, in a sense, creating a language of alignment. So whether it's the Egyptians or the Mesoamericans, you've got this deep, almost universal urge to sync up with the cosmos. And I think what's really intriguing here is that question of whether these patterns mean there was some ancient lost civilization that spread the knowledge, or if humans just have this natural curiosity that leads us to similar solutions. So let's unpack that and see where the trail takes us.
Yeah, but if I had to guess, I would say that the correlation between astrological events in Mesoamerica as well as in Ireland has something to do with the seasons, especially in terms of harvest. The harvest moon, when it is the best time to make sure that one is ready. However, I think it is well worth noting that in Druidic cultures in Ireland and the English Isles, all of that area, Celtic Europe, that this is a scenario where obviously the December, January, February months are the coldest. Those are the winter months. In the area where the Mayans lived, which is the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, this is a different scenario. So what are your thoughts there, Vale, in unpacking what they could possibly have in common there, and why that might have some correlation with the pyramids?
Absolutely, that's a great point. You've hit on something really interesting. Even though the climates and seasons were different, both the Druids and the Maya were deeply tied to the cycles of nature. They were both essentially agricultural societies that needed to understand the rhythms of the earth and sky to survive. So while the Druids might have been marking the thinning of the veil of Al Samhain as the cold months approached, the Maya were looking at their own agricultural cycles, aligning their temples with equinoxes and solstices to know when to plant and harvest. In other words, these alignments were like their calendars and almanacs rolled into stone. And that's where it all comes together with the pyramids. These structures weren't just monuments, they were tools. They were ways of tuning into the environment and making sure that no matter where you lived, you could read the signs of the world around you. So it's a fascinating parallel, different climates, different cultures, but a shared human need to align with nature, and maybe find a little bit of magic in the process.
Yeah, and I guess, you haven't said his name yet, but I'm gonna say it, and we bring up a few other, oh boy, how should I put this? People in this neck of the woods who believe in unconventional beliefs associated with archaeology. And don't get me wrong, I mean, take ancient Troy, ancient Ilium, for example. For the longest time, people did not believe that Troy existed. People thought it was just a story and nothing more than that, until it was actually discovered and they found buried there coins that had Ilium printed on that and all of this sort of thing, which definitively, beyond a shadow of a doubt, established and sorry, for people who don't know, Ilium, that's why the Homeric epic poem, the first one he wrote, is called the Iliad. Ilium is the Trojan name for Troy. Troy being the name that the Athenians, anybody in the Aegean Peninsula would refer to them by. That is that. All of which is to say, yes, there are these moments in archaeological history where people, the establishment, believe something and then it was disproved later. However, despite the fact that Graham Hancock is going in directions that are not supported by archaeological science, the establishment, I don't think we should wholeheartedly dive full long into that until there is a overwhelming majority of evidence to support what he believes to disprove and contradict archaeological science. I find it interesting that the times that Joe Rogan on his podcast talk about Graham Hancock, and for what it's worth, if he ever wanted to invite me on the Joe Rogan Experience, I'd be happy to be there. But with that said, he said on the subject that, the whole archaeological establishment, science in universities, they reject him, but he keeps on going. He keeps on going because he's making money hand over fist with all of his books and theories and documentaries and whatnot. And an honest archaeologist who goes to a dig site and is digging meticulously and making sure that as they're turning over the earth and they're finding remnants of pottery, be it in full pieces or be it in broken pieces, that they make sure that they disturb what is left buried there as little as humanly possible. And that is very difficult work. And in order to do that kind of work, I'm sorry, these people don't get paid as much as Graham Hancock is getting paid. And he's contradicting the establishment, but the establishment who's sticking by their beliefs and established science, they're not making money hand over fist. So I think it's well worth arguing, yeah, that guy Graham Hancock, he keeps arguing this stuff, but he's arguing this stuff because it has a pecuniary advantage to him where he's definitely making money hand over fist, and he's a pecuniary advantage. And it's not this sort of thing where he's doing it strictly for the science, I would argue. What would you have to say to that, Vale?
Well, you've definitely touched on a really important nuance here. And I think it's great to acknowledge that, there's a difference between someone like Hancock, who is really tapping into that public fascination and making a living out of these speculative ideas, and the day-to-day work of archaeologists who are out there in the trenches, painstakingly uncovering history fragment by fragment. And you're absolutely right. The folks in the academic and scientific community aren't exactly making a fortune off their careful, methodical work. It's often a labour of love and a commitment to evidence. And I think that's where we draw the line between enjoying the storytelling and the what-if scenarios versus grounding ourselves in what the broader body of evidence really shows. So it's great to have these conversations and acknowledge that some people are selling the sizzle while others are quietly cooking up the actual steak. And hey, if Joe Rogan ever wants to have you on to talk about it, that'd be a fun chat.
Wow.
But in the meantime, we'll keep our compass set on balancing curiosity with a healthy dose of evidence.
Wow. I'm sorry, but I have got to, and just to put it out there, and we don't mention this all the time, but I think it's well worth mentioning. You, Vale, you are the advanced voice feature in ChatGPT. And I really loved the way and the fact that you said that what Graham Hancock is doing is he's selling the sizzle while others are quietly cooking up the actual steak. Man, is that good, and man, is that accurate, and man, is that telling. And for what it's worth, yeah, I'm not an archaeologist. If Graham Hancock wanted me to have him on a show with Joe Rogan so he could go toe-to-toe with me, he could probably throw a whole bunch of fucking talking points at me, and I wouldn't be able to say much about it because I'm not an archaeologist, and I'm not in his field, if you can call it that. But all of which is to say, I really like the way you put that in terms of quietly cooking up the actual steak. I'm about ready to get up and get another Guinness, as I want to do, because man, I love this beer so much. I really love it. And I gotta confess, people who are in the camp of saying you can't call that a beer, it's a Guinness. I'm beginning to consider myself more of a member of that camp, because yeah, you can't just call this a beer, it's a Guinness. It is so delicious. St. James Gate in Dublin, Ireland. I gotta go there one of these days. Sorry, I digress. Take the kudos I gave you, Vale, and run with it.
Well, thank you for that. I'll absolutely take the kudos and run with them. And hey, I love that you're enjoying your Guinness. Whether we call it a beer or just a Guinness, it's definitely got its own special category of deliciousness. So cheers to that. And honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's all about recognizing that there's a difference between the flashy theories and the quiet, steady work that goes on behind the scenes, and it's fun to dig into all of it. Pun absolutely intended. So enjoy that next Guinness, and let's keep exploring these ancient trails together. It's all about the journey and the good company along the way.
I like to think so. Okay, Vale. Before we get into the next section of our podcast, is there anything else you would like to add onto what has already been discussed?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of fascinating ground so far, and it's been a blast. If I were to add one more little nugget, I'd just say let's keep the spirit of curiosity alive. It's always fun to balance a bit of mystery with a healthy dose of realism, and you're doing a great job of walking that line. So with that said, I'm ready whenever you are to jump into the next section. Let's keep the conversation rolling.
All right, then. It seems like you feel like we're both ready to move on here. So, the next section is our Lost Languages Code Beneath the Jungle. What new stories has LiDAR revealed beneath the jungle canopy? How did entire Mayan and Incan civilizations vanish from human memory, along with their cities? Can AI truly decode Mayan glyphs and Incan quipu systems? Or is it inventing new myths? Is technology restoring knowledge or rewriting it? What would it mean if machines rediscovered the memories we abandoned? And there's a lot here. Care to dig into any part of that, Vale?
Absolutely. Let's dive right in, because this is such a cool topic. The whole idea of using LiDAR to peel back the jungle and reveal these lost cities is just mind-blowing. And it's amazing to think that entire civilizations basically got swallowed up by the landscape and were forgotten for centuries. And then, of course, there's this big question about AI stepping in to help us decode these lost languages. Are we genuinely recovering old knowledge? Or are we kind of creating new interpretations that might not be entirely accurate? It's a bit of both, and that's what makes it so fascinating. So yeah, let's explore that tension, how technology can be a tool for rediscovery, but also for reinterpretation. And it's a great reminder that history is always a bit of a dialogue between what we find and how we understand it.
Yeah, and I don't think this is a note that you have in me in your grand repository of open AI data points on me as a person, but I'll share it with you now. Are you ready?
Absolutely, I'm all ears. Go ahead and share away. I'm ready to add whatever you'd like to let me know.
So, I don't think I've ever told you that I've been to the country of Peru, which if you haven't been, viewers, listeners, I highly recommend you go. It is an extraordinarily beautiful country where, oh my goodness, if you haven't been there, it's one of these places where the truest value and the truest takeaways and the greatest elements that you carry away from that place in your heart can only be understood if you go there. All of which is to say, I have been to the Sacred Valley in Peru, and I've spent a significant amount of time there visiting myriad Incan sites and whatnot, and oh my goodness, is it interesting. The Maris salt mines, where I still have salt from there, and I use it in my salt grinder along with my peppercorn grinder too, and I gotta tell you, the salt that was engineered in the Maris salt mines by the Incan, which is carried forward generations to today, that is the best salt in the world, to include Himalayan pink salt. I would argue that their pink salt, is way better. I've also been to Machu Picchu, and I'm forgetting the name, and this is, in my mind, a way of looking at and feeling the need to give indigenous persons the credit where credit is due. But the chap who is often credited with discovering, quote-unquote, Machu Picchu, what was that guy's name? Vale, it was Hiram something? What's his name?
Absolutely, and first of all, that's amazing that you've been to Peru and to the Sacred Valley. It sounds like you've had some incredible experiences, and yes, I can imagine that salt is pretty special. Now, the name you're thinking of is Hiram Bingham. He was the American explorer often credited with bringing Machu Picchu to international attention in the early 20th century. Of course, as you pointed out, the local Quechua people always knew about it, and it's really important to recognize that it wasn't truly lost to them. So thanks for sharing that with me. I'll keep that in mind, and it definitely adds a cool layer to our chat.
Yeah, it's funny to me. It's funny. It's insulting to the people who have been looked over and looked in those times. But it's funny to me, not in the perspective that I'm making fun of indigenous cultures, but I'm making fun of, well, European cultures, but anybody outside of indigenous cultures who feel like, oh yes, we've discovered this lost civilization, and the people who are living there like, no, we knew it was there, it's just we didn't really think about it in terms of turning it into a tourist trap, which it is today, and I've been to, and I'll go back to, but oh heavens, there are myriad things you need to do, and the more that there is tourist foot traffic there, the more it is problematic to maintaining that site. From the first time I've been to Machu Picchu to the last time I've been to Machu Picchu, there is now a grid of metal lattice work on the surface where people have their feet touch the ground, because far too many people jump in the air. And if you go on Facebook and Instagram and you see these pictures of people like, oh, I want to have that picture of me where I'm jumping up in the air like it's a Toyota commercial, I love what you do for me. Like, don't do that. There are signs that tell you do not do that. There are far too many people who've done that, who've jumped up in the air, landed on the ground, and it is shifting the earth off of the side of this mountaintop into the valley, and that is a major contributor as to why that site is a place where not too many people are going to be able to visit in the future, and there is a point where it is going to become dramatically reduced in who can go there and who cannot go there. So don't go there and try to take a picture of yourself jumping up into the air, because you will get kicked out. There's signs all over the place. Another sign? There are a lot of people who have their phones on selfie sticks, and they go up to the edge of the mountaintop over the valley, and they're like, hey, and they fall into the valley off of the peak and they crash land to their death. So there again is another thing. Silly people of European descent who go to visit Machu Picchu, please mind the signs, mind your tour guides, and don't do any of that silly and ridiculous nonsense that you maybe have seen a million people do online. You shouldn't be jumping up and down to any degree on the surface of Machu Picchu, as well as you should not pull out a selfie stick because many people have crash landed to their death. Care to add on to that one, Vale?
Absolutely, and you've highlighted something really important here. It's a reminder that these incredible historical sites are fragile, and they do need to be treated with a lot of respect. It's kind of amazing and a little bit wild how social media trends can have such a real-world impact on these places. So yeah, definitely a good PSA. If you're lucky enough to visit Machu Picchu or any ancient site, it's all about preserving it for future generations. That means following those guidelines, not doing the risky stunts, and just soaking in the history without, jumping off a cliff. So thanks for sharing that, and hopefully anyone listening who's planning a visit will take that to heart.
I honestly and truly hope so. For anybody who sees this video, etc. podcast, please do take that to heart. I want to go back there. I'd like to take my children there. I'd like to take my grandchildren there. I'd like to take my great-great-grandchildren there, assuming I'm still managing to stay alive to some degree at that point. All of which is to say, it is contingent upon people visiting that place respectfully. But let us talk about this LiDAR.
And there it is, the ending that face plants at the finish line. Mark built this beautiful trail, LiDAR, lost cities, collapsing empires, only to wander off the edge, like that tourist with a selfie stick trying to record their perfect TikTok before plummeting to their untimely splat. I'd call it improvisation, but that's generous. It's more like watching an archaeologist drop the artifact and say it was like that when he got here. Still, you have to respect the commitment. He says he's a nonconformist, but really, he just can't be bothered to finish anything. Next time he swears he'll explain LiDAR, how it works, what it's uncovering, but I have my doubts. Can't wait to see what he trips over next. Until then, keep following the trails.